Big Springs Ranch for Children is located 9 miles north of Leakey on perhaps the most beautiful ranch in Texas, 7,000 acres along the Frio River, including the headwaters of the Frio. A village and charter school have been built to accommodate 54 residential children and 120 students. The ranch is a place for children who have reached a point that they have stabilized and can live in family dwellings with house parents and staff and teachers there on the campus. I participated in the first decade of building Hill Country Youth Ranch, and it had been come out according to hopes and dreams to have this village. And I thought I was about finished and that it was a wonderful thing that I'd participated in. And I didn't see coming that we would be called on to do more. We were finishing the chapel here at Hill Country Youth Ranch when a lady drove up in a little pickup truck with feed, and she couldn't have been 5 feet tall because she could barely see out. I had no idea when she asked for a tour I was being interviewed. She called me back and asked if she could host me to come to her ranch. And I drove out with directions to Big Springs Ranch on the Frio. I couldn't believe it. Big Springs Ranch on the Frio is one of the historic ranches in Texas. It is the most beautiful, it's the headwaters of the Frio River. 7,000 acres. We have 265 here. She sat me down after a tour of her ranch and said, "Gary, I'm the last of my family. My sisters and my mother died. We ranched this since the 1920s, and I've made a commitment to them to give it to somebody to build a children's home. And I'd like to give it to you if you'll promise to build a children's home." And I said, "Oh, Mabel, we're a little non-denominational village in Kerrville. You need to go to the Episcopals, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Baptists, people with a statewide and national constituency of support." And she said, "I already have." And she pulled out a folder and she had 30 letters to those national organizations with rejections or saying we'll sell it or we'll do something else with it, make a retreat center. And I knew why that the other people had rejected her, because it was remote out in the woods. There was no medical nearby. The little town of Leakey had 350 people. I couldn't imagine getting the supplies and the builders out there, much less running a children's home. And I turned her down 4 times. But she finally sent Otis Moore, who was the man who had performed the ceremony of carols in my wedding.
When God gave a promised land, He chose a Moses who was determined and persistent to bring people to it. When God opened up and exposed the poverty and the needs of India, He chose a faithful and dogged person like Mother Teresa to meet that need. And it was the same God who spoke with a vision to some sisters who lived on this ranch, who saw in that vision the need of children long, long years later, even after we're all gone, that can be met because God wants that need met. It seems to me that the last living person of that first vision-catching group on this ranch, Mabel Perry, is determined, just like those other saints of God, to see that that happens. Miss Mabel Perry.
Well, I want to tell you one thing. It didn't come easy. I approached Gary about this about 15 years ago, and he said no. Well, I talked to John Givens, and he says, "I'll talk to Gary." And he really twisted his arm, and that didn't do the trick. Then he went to Reverend Moore, and he says, "It's a calling, you have to do it." So all together, we got it done.
And he said, when you have knowledge and experience and a calling, you don't have as much choice as you think, Gary. And so they conspired on me, and I finally said, okay, reluctantly, and it turned into the biggest blessing. A place of healing was created in a way like the youth ranch, just one step at a time. And it's a different atmosphere, and it's developed a different structure.
I just think being in this comforting, wild atmosphere couldn't help but improve children's outlook on life.
I was the first staff out here. We began building Davenport Homestead. That was the first homestead, and of course the grandparents' cottage right next to that. So I moved out here and was in the grandparents' cottage for a while, just to kind of oversee the building of the roads, the 10-year plan, the site plan, like where things were going to go. Like it was sort of my job to begin that and to also learn everything about the ranch that I could from Oma Bell. So my job, I would have coffee with her every morning for about 2 years, just to kind of go around the ranch with her, learn the cattle business from her, the history of the ranch from her. So I have all these stories in my head from how they got the property, what they did with it from 1923 up till now.
And so Big Springs has become a place with the great outdoors, the horse program and the wilderness program, camping, 4-H, cattle raising, different focus for different kids. Again, creating more of the array of services and the continuum of care by having the other campus. Didn't see it coming, didn't have any idea how we were going to build it, but I have never known how we were going to build anything. And people came along. Oma Bell said to me the day I accepted, I said, "You're going to have to pray with me." We got on our knees and prayed that if we did this, there would be people who came to help us. And she turned to me as I left the house that day and said, "Get to work and they'll come." And so that's the mantra that she left as a saying that's on the wall out there. And sure enough, they did, and so did all the wonderful people to work there.
So I've kind of seen her vision and then Dad's vision happen over the since 99, I guess I moved out here, 98. So it's been really, really cool to see this valley turn into the village. It's been really neat.
Now,
Let's get to work.
you bet. Let's you get to work.